There's nothing that Red Pill Bros hate more than the idea of being dependent on women. When they insult people, a beta male is never just a beta male. He's also a cuck and a simp. Trust me, I know. Somebody once made an entire video about me where all he did was call me a beta male cuck over and over again. They might not be willing to consider, however, the possibility that the way that they define their self-esteem may be making them dependent on women in itself. Not on any specific woman, but on women in general. In older times, for a man, proving his worth was, some would say, a bit simpler. All you did was you worked hard, you obeyed God, you did all the normal things that any normal person in a society does. That's a little bit of an oversimplification, but even then, not really. In a lot of societies, in a lot of cases, for most of human history, you just did what you were told, you had your kids, and you sowed your fields, and you listened to God, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Nowadays, though, that doesn't really cut it. If you look online, everybody's a winner. Everybody has a Bugatti, everybody has a ton of women, everybody's ripped. Forget the lighting that they're in, that's not important. And so if you want to be taken seriously as a man, especially in certain chronically online red pill circles, you gotta have something more than that. You gotta have a bit more of an exaggerated masculine profile that will really turn heads. And one of the chief ways to do this, not just among red pill bros in general, but just among young modern men, is by sleeping around a lot. Because, of course, getting a lot of people to have sex with you implies that you have traits that make other people want to have sex with somebody. That you're charming, that you're good looking, that you're rich, possibly. Although, ironically, when people tell you how to get laid, they just teach you how to work on your physical looks and not on the other things that affect more. Because, you know, the value of having people who want to screw you is that it shows that you have the things that make people want to screw people, but they don't tell you to get things that make people want to screw people, even though that's theoretically what's actually important. And also, a lot of red pill guys and a lot of young men these days in general are a little bit insecure. So they don't want to really enter into interdependent long-term relationships with a woman because that's scary. That comes with risk. She might divorce you, she might this, she might that. Better to play it safe and just sleep around. But in both of these regards, both being hurt by women and becoming dependent on them, sleeping around is just not the way to go. And it may lead you more into it than just getting into a regular relationship. Let's start with being dependent on women. First of all, if getting women is your goal, then every single night that you go out trying to get women, trying to prove yourself by having slept with women, the fulfillment of your goal, which plays into your self-perception and into how you're structuring your life and all this, you know, all these red pill guys are so focused on their goals, hooray for them. But if the fulfillment of your goal is dependent on that night, some random woman taking pity on you or seeing you in a favorable light somehow and deciding to sleep with you without pity, but that's unlikely if you're a red pill guy, then you've left the fulfillment of your goals completely in the hands of women. You've given them all the power to decide if your goal is fulfilled. And can't you say, well, isn't that the same thing when it comes to a marriage? And yeah, you're correct. The thing with a marriage is you only have to do it once, and then you've succeeded for life. Then your wife has no power over you, and you can tell her to make a sandwich whenever you want. And also, in that case, the dependence is mutual. You know, it's not just you dependent on her to fulfill your goal, because women, they kid themselves into thinking they're not going out to get laid, and they don't really put as much of a identity emphasis on it as a lot of young men do. So when you're sleeping around, your ego is more dependent on her approval than her ego is dependent on yours. I know the rebel guys talk about how to manipulate ladies and get them dependent on your approval, get them trying to please you, blah, blah, blah. That's not gonna work. She doesn't really care. And when it comes to avoiding being hurt by women and taken advantage of by women, by sleeping around, you're basically just accepting that. Instead of risking it, you're going to make the chance 100%. How do I figure that to be true? Well, you're paying for the date. Come on, no, you're not splitting it 50-50. No woman's gonna do that. You're paying for the date. You're paying to bring you to and from there for the movie. You're paying for this, you're paying for that. You're investing a lot more money into this, you know. They're afraid of losing their money, so you're just making losing your money a sure thing. And then you spend hours with this lady for probably, like, let's be honest, 15 minutes of sex. There's a far greater risk of getting Me Too'd or getting STDs, or of her just like actually robbing you or doing something like that. Because you cannot afford to be as selective as you can with a wife when it comes to people you're just sleeping around with. You're not gonna vet somebody for months to sleep with them one time. You're just gonna meet them and be like, hot enough, okay, let's do it. And you don't know who this person could be. This person could be an axe murderer. Not only that, but sleeping around instead of getting married is just giving up the actual benefits that you can get from having a relationship with a woman. You're giving up having kids, you're giving up having a life partner, which is gonna make you sandwiches and clean your house and this and that. You're just giving up every single thing that a woman can provide for you and making the risks a 100% chance instead of just being a risk. It's just definitely gonna happen. You're definitely wasting money and wasting time and this and that instead of just having a 50% chance of divorce. Like, do I even believe that? Are 50% of the people you meet divorced? Not 50% of the people that I know. And in their efforts to avoid any dependency at all, MGTOW and Red Pill Bros become completely dependent on women for their self-perception. Which is why I'm going to be an uncreative ass, shamelessly copy Matt Walsh, and say that today, guys who sleep around and think that they're avoiding risks, avoiding dependency, avoiding this, avoiding that, and somehow coming out with a better deal when they give up all the good things that are in the deal in the first place, are today canceled. Matt, please don't sue me.